21 years ago, a small CBS drama about FBI profilers chasing serial killers premiered without much fanfare and quietly became one of the most consumed shows in television history. Criminal Minds ran for 15 seasons on CBS, got revived on Paramount Plus as Criminal Minds, Evolution, and by 2026 has stretched across 19 seasons and more than 350 episodes. But while the BAU kept catching unsubs on screen, the people playing Hotch, JJ, Garcia, and Reed were living lives full of firings, feuds, tragedy, and reinvention that never made it into the show's opening credits. Some of what happened behind the scenes is stranger and darker than anything the writers put on paper, and today we're going through the cast then and now to see where 2 decades took them. Start with A.J. Cook, who played Jennifer J.J. Jarrow. Cook was born in Ottawa, Ontario in 1978 and was still in her 20s when she landed the role of the media liaison, who became the emotional glue of the team. She stayed with the show for its entire run, but not without a scare. In 2010, during Season 6, producers cut her from the cast along with co-star Paget Brewster, citing budget restructuring. Fans reacted with genuine fury, flooding the network with complaints, and within months, both actresses were brought back. It remains one of the clearest examples of a fan base actually changing a network's decision. Cook has continued playing JJ all the way through Evolution, making her one of only a handful of actors to appear in nearly every season the show has produced. Away from the camera, she's been married to actor Nathan Anderson since 2001, and the couple has 2 sons. Now, in her late 40s, Cook is still a series regular, still recognizable, and still one of the most consistent presences the franchise has ever had. Then there's Thomas Gibson, who spent 12 seasons as Unit Chief Aaron Hotchner, arguably the show's moral center. Gibson's exit wasn't a creative decision or a contract dispute, it was a firing and a messy one. In August 2016, Variety reported that Gibson had gotten into a physical altercation with writer-producer Virgil Williams during a dispute over a line of dialogue, allegedly kicking him during the confrontation. ABC Studios and CBS Television Studios suspended him, launched an internal review, and within weeks announced his dismissal. It wasn't an isolated incident either. Gibson had reportedly gone through anger management training years earlier after a separate altercation with an assistant director on set. Gibson gave his own account afterward, telling people that his foot had made contact with Williams' leg during a heated exchange, but that he never intended it as an assault. Whatever the full truth, the show wrote Hotchner off abruptly, without the send-off a character of his stature might have deserved, and Gibson largely disappeared from major television afterward, working in smaller and independent projects since. It's a strange footnote for an actor who anchored one of the most-watched procedurals of the 2000s and 2010s. Anton Yelchin's connection to the show is brief, but unforgettable. He appeared in a single second-season episode as Nathan Harris, a teenager fixated on serial killers who draws Spencer Reed into a dangerous situation, and that one episode is still remembered by longtime fans as one of the series' most haunting hours. Yelchin's career exploded afterward. He became globally recognizable as Pavel Chekhov in the rebooted Star Trek films and built a genuinely impressive independent film resume, including like Crazy and Green Room. His story doesn't get a happy ending, though. On June 19, 2016, Yelchin died at his Los Angeles home after his own Jeep Grand Cherokee rolled backward down his sloped driveway, pinning him against a brick pillar and a security fence, the result of a mechanical flaw with the vehicle's gear shifter that later led to a massive recall. He was only 27. It was a death that shook Hollywood, not just because of how young he was, but because of how senseless and mechanical the cause turned out to be. Kirsten Vangsness built Penelope Garcia into one of the most beloved characters in the entire franchise, the quirky, warm-hearted tech analyst whose friendship with Derek Morgan became a fan-favorite dynamic. Vangsness is one of the show's true survivors, appearing across almost the entire run into Evolution. She's also been one of its most outspoken members. In 2017, she and A.J. Cook publicly pushed back against pay disparities between the male and female leads, reportedly threatening to walk if the gap wasn't addressed, a stand that got real results and drew attention to a pattern that had existed on network television for decades. Vangsness has also written for the show, stepping behind the camera creatively as well as in front of it, and she's been open in interviews about her own life, including her identity as a bisexual woman navigating Hollywood's expectations. She remains a series regular in her 50s, still playing Garcia, still one of the most recognizable faces of the franchise. Mandy Patinkin's time on Criminal Minds is short compared to most of his castmates, but his exit is one of the most talked about in the show's history, mostly because of what he said afterward. Patinkin played Jason Gideon, the senior profiler who anchored the first 2 seasons, and he left abruptly heading into season 3. For years, the departure was chalked up to the standard Hollywood explanation of creative differences. Then, in a 2012 interview with New York Magazine, Patinkin gave the real reason, and it wasn't subtle. He said he'd taken the role for financial security, but hadn't anticipated the relentless darkness of the material, describing weekly storylines that revolve around violence against women, and saying the show was, in his words, the biggest public mistake of his career. He later elaborated that the role required him to sit in such a dark headspace that it was, in his phrase, destroying his heart and soul, and that leaving was something he needed to do to save his own well-being. It's a striking thing for an actor to say about a show that made him famous to a new generation, especially since Patinkin had already built a career most actors would envy, a Tony Award winner, an Emmy winner for Chicago Hope, and the actor who gave us Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride, a role so iconic it still generates internet moments decades later, including a viral 2023 tweet where Patinkin used one of Montoya's lines to needle Elon Musk online. Since Criminal Minds, Patinkin found a second signature role as Saul Berenson on Homeland and has continued working steadily into his 70s. Matthew Gray Gubler's Dr. Spencer Reed became arguably the most iconic character the show ever produced, the socially awkward genius with an eidetic memory who slowly grew into one of the team's emotional anchors. Gubler stuck with the role for 15 seasons on CBS, directed multiple episodes along the way, and became known off-screen for a strikingly different creative life, publishing children's books and pursuing visual art alongside acting. When the show returned as Criminal Minds, Evolution on Paramount+, Gubler notably did not return as a series regular, a choice that surprised longtime fans given how central Reed had been to the original run. He's made only limited appearances connected to the franchise since, choosing to keep a relatively private, low-key public profile compared to the tabloid attention some of his castmates have drawn. Joe Mantegna stepped in as David Rossi to fill the gap Patinkin's exit left, and he ended up staying with the franchise longer than almost anyone else, carrying through from season 3 all the way into Evolution's current run. Mantegna arrived with an already substantial career, a Tony Award winner, recognizable to film audiences from The Godfather Part 3, and to a completely different audience as the voice of Fat Tony on The Simpsons for decades. Rossi became a stabilizing veteran presence in the back half of the show's run, and Mantegna, now in his late 70s, remains part of the cast as the franchise continues into its 20th season. Shamar Moore's Derek Morgan brought charisma and physicality to the BU and turned Baby Girl into one of the show's most quoted catchphrases. Moore left the original series in 2016 and moved into leading man territory almost immediately, headlining the CBS action series SWAT for years afterward and picking up a Daytime Emmy earlier in his career for his work on The Young and the Restless. His personal life has had its share of both hardship and joy. He's spoken publicly about losing his mother, who had lived with multiple sclerosis for years, and about becoming a father for the first time in his 50s, a milestone he's described as one of the most meaningful of his life. Moore returned to the Criminal Minds universe periodically even after his departure, and remains a recognizable face on network television. Paget Brewster's Emily Prentiss started as a mid-series addition and eventually became one of the show's most important characters, taking over as unit chief in its later seasons. Brewster's relationship with the show hasn't been entirely smooth. She left partway through the original run amid what was reported as tension over her reduced role, only to return and ultimately become one of the show's central figures heading into Evolution. Outside the franchise, she's built a strong career in voice acting, including work on animated series, and she married musician Steve Damstraw in 2014. Now in her late 50s, Brewster continues playing Prentiss as one of the anchors of the current era of the show. Aisha Tyler joined later as Dr. Tara Lewis, bringing a resume that already included stand-up comedy, a stint co-hosting The Talk, and voice work as Lana Kane on the animated series Archer. She's been candid in interviews about parts of her personal life, including the end of her marriage and the difficulty of infertility struggles she and her former husband went through. Tyler has continued working steadily across television and voiceover work, and remains part of the current Criminal Minds, Evolution cast on Paramount+. Add in the newer generation, Zach Gilford playing the chilling Elias Voigt, Adam Rodriguez as Luke Alves, RJ Hatanaka's Tyler Green, and what you get is a franchise that's essentially rebuilt itself twice, first through cast turnover on CBS, and then through a full network-to-streaming reinvention on Paramount+. 21 years is an unusually long lifespan for any drama, let alone one built around subject matter as dark as serial killers and criminal psychology. It's outlasted marriages, survived a firing scandal, absorbed a genuine tragedy in Anton Yelchin's death, weathered a very public fight over equal pay, and kept going anyway, currently sitting on a renewal for a 20th season. Looking at the cast now versus 2005, what's striking isn't really about how anyone's face has changed. It's how much life happened around a show that was on its surface just about catching bad guys every week. Careers were made and nearly destroyed. Actors said things about the show that most people in their position never would have dared to say publicly. And somehow, despite all of it, Criminal Minds is still airing new episodes in 2026, longer after its premiere than most shows even get the chance to exist. So which story surprised you the most? Was it Mandy Patinkin's brutal honesty, Thomas Gibson's sudden firing, or Anton Yelchin's tragic one-episode legacy? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more then and now breakdowns of your favorite